Welcome back, everybody. Today, we're going to be doing a deep dive, and we're going to be looking at some of your most unsettling college experiences.
Okay.
You know, those moments that just made you question, like, everything. The stories that you tell your friends, and they're like, wait, that really happened?
Right.
You submitted a YouTube video by Mr. Nightmare, and it's called 3 Disturbing True College Horror Stories.
Yeah.
And we're going to unpack it, why these resonate so strongly, not just for the spooky factor, but what they reveal about trust vulnerability and the choices we make when things get weird.
I think what's really fascinating about these stories that were submitted by listeners is that they're rooted in the familiar, you know, college campuses, dorm rooms,
Yeah.
parties. These are supposed to be the carefree, exciting settings of our youth.
Right.
Yet these stories remind us that even in those familiar environments, there are shadows and unknowns and the potential for things to go very wrong.
Okay, let's dive into that first story, the Phantom Interview. So you were so excited about this potential internship, right? A prestigious firm, a chance to get your foot in the door. And then this Armin Slawinski guy reaches out. But even early on, there were those little hints that something wasn't quite adding up.
Yeah, you mentioned you couldn't find any online presence for him, which is so strange for someone representing a well-known firm. Like, in today's world, that's a huge red flag.
Yeah.
Did that not make you at least a little suspicious?
Well, you also told us the interview location was a bit odd.
Oh, yeah.
A demolished construction site instead of a coffee shop.
Right.
I mean, come on. But you were probably trying to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, especially with all that internship pressure.
Exactly.
It's easy to ignore those warning signs when you're focused on a goal.
For sure.
And then there's that black Bentley pulling up.
Oh, my God.
The mysterious driver. The glimpse of a man lying in the back seat.
Yeah.
It's almost like a scene from a spy thriller, except this was your reality.
Right.
In that moment, your fight or flight response kicked in and you made a split-second decision to run.
I mean, you got to go.
And thank goodness you had your friend Riley there.
Yes.
That was smart thinking on both your parts. Having a support system, someone to offer a second opinion, and maybe even a getaway car can be invaluable in these situations.
Absolutely. Because think about that incredible burst of energy you felt when you were running from that Bentley. That's adrenaline. Your body's natural response to danger, and it likely helped you escape. It's amazing how our brains and bodies can react in those high-pressure moments.
You're right. And even though nothing physically bad happened, that experience clearly left its mark.
Of course.
You talked about the lingering trauma, the what-ifs, the feeling of never getting closure.
Yeah.
These stories aren't just about physical danger. They're about the psychological impact of these unsettling encounters.
Absolutely. They force us to confront the reality that even when we try to be cautious, things can still happen that shake us to our core, and sometimes the not knowing the unanswered questions can be the most unsettling part of all.
So let's shift gears now and talk about your experience with Diora, your roommate.
Okay.
This is a classic roommate from hell scenario, but with some truly disturbing twists. You were so excited to move into your first dorm, and then...
Yeah, and then you start noticing these strange behaviors, the grunting, the shaking, the whispering to himself. It's understandable that you felt uncomfortable. These actions, while potentially stemming from social anxieties or other issues, can be incredibly unnerving to witness, especially in a shared living space.
And then there's the staring incident.
Oh.
Coming back late to find him just watching you, that sends chills down my spine, just hearing about it. It's such a violation of personal space and a classic tactic of intimidation, whether intentional or not.
Right, and then of course the box finding your belongings collected like that, photos, eyelashes, socks, that's beyond creepy. It crosses the line into a serious violation of boundaries.
You mentioned feeling hesitant to report him to your RA at first. What held you back? Was it the fear of being overdramatic or not being taken seriously?
It's a tough spot to be in for sure.
It's important to remember that you have rights as a student, and a tenant documenting these incidents, even if you're not ready to formally report them, can be helpful later on. And when approaching an RA, focus on the impact Diora's behavior has on your ability to feel safe and comfortable in your own living space.
I think that's really good advice.
You were in a really tough spot. It sounds like you tried to handle it on your own, but sometimes those situations require outside intervention. And even though the box mysteriously disappeared, the experience clearly left you feeling vulnerable and violated.
Totally. Yeah, it's a reminder that even when we try to do everything right, we can still find ourselves in situations that test our boundaries and challenge our sense of security. And sometimes the most disturbing part is the lack of resolution, the not knowing what was really going on or what might have happened if things had escalated further.
Speaking of unsettling situations and not knowing what's around the corner, Your third story takes us to Halloween week at your university, a classic party scene, but with a truly terrifying twist. So you were having a good time with friends, then needed a bathroom break, and that's when things went sideways.
You mentioned getting separated from your friends, losing your phone, and wandering outside in the freezing cold alcohol can definitely impair our judgment and situational awareness, making us more vulnerable to these kinds of mishaps.
So there you are, cold lost and starting to sober up. You spot what you think is an academic building, figuring you can warm up and get your bearings. But as we know, it wasn't an academic building at all, was it?
It was a deserted warehouse and the door locked behind you. That sense of isolation of being trapped in a dark and unfamiliar space must have been terrifying. The locked door also raises questions about who else might be inside and what their intentions might be.
You told us about discovering that smaller room with the red light chains and that eerie buzzing sound. It sounds like something straight out of a horror movie. What was going through your mind at that point?
And then you hear footsteps. Someone else is in the warehouse with you. The unknown is often far more frightening than any tangible threat, and those footsteps would have sent shivers down anyone's spine.
Your adrenaline kicks in, you spot a window, but it's high up. You have to act fast, so you start kicking the window over and over again until it shatters. Talk about a daring escape.
That decision to jump from that window, even with the potential for injury, speaks volumes about the level of fear you were experiencing. It's incredible how our survival instincts can take over and drive us to do things we might never consider in normal circumstances.
You landed on a pile of recycling bins, pushed yourself up, and ran. You didn't even look back. It's amazing how our bodies can find that extra strength and resilience when we're in fight or flight mode.
You made it back to your dorm, reunited with your worried friends. But that experience clearly left a lasting impact. The unanswered questions: who was in that warehouse? What were they doing? Why was the door locked from the inside? These mysteries can linger long after the physical danger has passed.
It's a chilling reminder that even in the midst of a bustling college campus, we can stumble upon pockets of darkness and encounter situations that defy explanation. And it brings us back to that idea of trusting our instincts. You initially went into that warehouse seeking shelter, but something felt off, and you ultimately made the right call to get out of there.
Yeah, based on your experience, it seems like having a backup plan for emergencies could be beneficial. Have you considered safety apps that allow you to share your location with trusted friends, or even just making a habit of letting someone know where you're going when you're out alone at night?
These three stories, while unique in their details, share a common thread. They all highlight the importance of trusting your gut and taking steps to protect yourself, even in environments that are supposed to be safe.
You're absolutely right. Each story touches on different aspects of vulnerability. Like in the internship story, it was the pressure to succeed and the willingness to overlook red flags with the roommate situation. It was that initial hesitation to assert boundaries and advocate for your own well-being. And in the warehouse story, it was the impact of alcohol and situational awareness, or the lack thereof.
It's interesting how these stories also challenge our perceptions of trust. We often assume that certain people or institutions are inherently trustworthy: prestigious firms, college administrators, fellow students. But these experiences remind us that trust needs to be earned, not blindly given.
Yeah, and you raised a really good point earlier about the psychological impact of these events. Even though you weren't physically harmed in any of these situations, the trauma of those experiences is very real. The lingering fear, the what-ifs, the feeling of violation, these can have a lasting impact on our sense of security and trust in the world.
It's so easy to downplay these experiences as just a weird night or a bad roommate, but the emotional and psychological effects can be so profound. It's important to acknowledge those feelings and seek support if you need it.
Oh, for sure. Talking to friends, family, or a therapist can help process those emotions and develop coping mechanisms. You mentioned that you still think about these events from time to time.
Yep.
And that's completely normal. These experiences, while unsettling, can also be opportunities for growth and learning.
They force us to reevaluate our assumptions, to be more aware of our surroundings, and to prioritize our safety and well-being above all else. They also highlight the importance of having a strong support system, people you can trust to listen, offer advice, and help you navigate those difficult situations.
I think what I find particularly insightful is how you've reflected on your own choices in each of these stories. You've acknowledged moments where you might have done things differently, and that self-awareness is crucial for personal growth.
Absolutely. It's not about blaming yourself for what happened, but rather using those experiences to inform future decisions and develop strategies for staying safe and protecting your boundaries.
Right, exactly. These stories aren't just about fear and danger, they're about empowerment. They encourage us to be more proactive, to trust our instincts, and to take control of our own safety and well-being.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into your college horror stories, what's the biggest takeaway you're walking away with? What will you do differently moving forward? Or what advice would you give to your younger self knowing what you know now?
Well, I think these stories remind us that even in the seemingly safe and familiar environments of college life, there are risks and unknowns. But by being aware and trusting our instincts and learning from our experiences, we can navigate those challenges and emerge stronger and more resilient.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. And remember, stay curious, stay safe, and trust your gut. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration of the world around us.